is going to be really windy again today and quite warm for this April weekend. It's going to get up to 90, I think, today, Stuart. So what I want to talk about today is what's going on in the backyard. The front yard, I think, is pretty much complete. We did a garden tour of it, and I think it looks and has been tidied up to the extent I can tidy it up. There's not a whole lot more I can do until it's time to transition some things in and out. The back, I still have lots of zhuzhing to do, but I want to give you a little tour of what it looks like right now in the state that it is, some things that I'm going to be doing that I will do today. And then later on, again, things are changing so quickly that Stuart keeps telling me we might do some added videos or something, because things are changing so quickly around here, and I want you guys to feel as if you are part of this garden as well, and you can experience it along with me as it goes through these changes and metamorphoses through spring. So Stuart says we need to do a shoot maybe a little bit more frequently, so that's just kind of a heads up. So in anticipation of Easter and maybe having a few friends over, I'm starting to at least get things looking really clean and presentable. Now, one thing that I did as kind of a refresh for my backyard is I had all of my lawn furniture painted. This wrought iron furniture, you guys have seen it before. I had it painted. My friend Bruce, that I've known forever and a day, and boy, the wind has already gotten it kind of dirty. But nevertheless, it's got a fresh, glossy black veneer. Stuart, if you don't mind showing the bistro over here.
Totally different.
Yeah, it's really looking fresh and clean. I don't have my back pillows on there because it's just too windy and they'll just get dirty like those seat cushions over there. But but we did get all of this painted, including the table itself. And so now I am doing things like this. I'm going to come through and at least begin to tidy this up, in hopes that we can eat outside. But Stuart, I think there's a 60% chance of rain on Easter Sunday, and I would happily give up the opportunity to eat outside if we could get some much needed rain. So here are some other things, and let's see, what did I do with them, Stuart? Here they are. I knew they were close because I placed them. I did not plop them. I want to make sure that always when I'm out and about, I have something to snip with. So starting out as part of my refresh over here, we've got a lot of competition from the doggies next door today, Stuart. Yeah, I hope everyone can hear. This table that I thrifted last year at Antique Avenue, and last year I had topiaries on it. This year I am just going to store my pots on it, and as I finish zhuzhing, I'll have some pretty plants that are also on there. Right now I've just got some tired Kalanchoe or Kalanchoe, and I will kind of zhuzh that table up a little bit more. When they repainted my furniture, they also, if you can kind of see in the distance, they repainted my driveway gate and some other things. So that's all part of my refresh, things that have been in process. I've been playing with my plant stand up here. I have fed all of my topiaries, and I did something that is a signature touch of mine, and I'll show you how I'm going to do it with some other plants. But that is, I love things in threes. I love to take the same plant and pot them in 3 pots that are identical and use them in very specific ways in the landscape. Now, you may say, oh, that's a no-brainer. That's so easy. Yes, it is. And that's exactly why I'm telling you, because it's anything any of us can replicate, and it gives you that kind of high-end, sophisticated look that you sometimes see in better garden books and in garden magazines. And that's planting 3 things identically. And in this case, I have some of of this gorgeous heucherella. This is a southern living plant. I just got these not long ago. They like this semi-shaded area, and I've got 3 of them planted in identical terracotta pots. And then I like it because it provides cohesion to my display of topiaries. And I've got another one over here with some next to some spent orchids that are going to be dealt with a little bit later. But I like the way it then brings together, and they're terracotta also, so it matches the other terracotta myrtle topiaries here on the back stoop. The other thing I did, I think I told you that I wanted to aggregate some of my smaller pots and some of my smaller plants into larger planters, so I did just that with these orange bloomers that I showed you before, and I planted, they were in 3 individual pots, and whereas these, I planted them individually, these I took 3 and planted singly. So now this whole area, albeit it's a little bit windblown, but it still looks okay, I think. Then I've got some spent bulbs down here. The muscari is about finished. These I will plant out in the minor bulb garden which I will show you in just a minute. I showed you in the front yard how I had all sorts of purple columbine from some seed from Munich. This is beautiful yellow columbine, and it goes to seed very, very readily. I let it go wherever it wants to, and this was gifted to me by a friend here in Oklahoma City, Christy Everest. So I love that, and there's also some more that is getting ready to come up and come into bloom. And then I have different perennials that will come up in here, and they will bloom also in kind of a purpley color, So that's the progress that's going on in here. So now let's walk this way. And you guys know how so I guess this is a tour of my garden rooms. I refreshed these chairs. They are painted a glossy black, which matches the plant stand that's in my QVC collection. So I like the way all of this looks. Look over here, Stuart. I showed you the other amaryllis, the red amaryllis that were in bloom. We'll show those again, but look at this here. Huge fat buds coming out of this other container. So don't throw away those amaryllis bulbs after Christmas. Pot them up, and the following year, maybe the year after that, they will bloom again. I've got big fat buds on these. So this area is getting ready for lots of, hopefully if the wind ever dies down, seeding outside. Now, Stuart, if you can come over here for a minute. Here is another one of my beloved giraffe retractable hose reels, you guys. I'm not getting paid to say this. I just love these, and I've got 3 of them. See how easily it glides back into place. Some of you asked if I grew any hosta, and I don't grow a lot of them. There's a few that come up in the front yard, but I just find them a little bit troublesome. I know they grow like weeds in other areas of the country, but for me here, they require so much water. You battle with slugs and snails. They get crispy as the sun changes and gets hotter. So I now have relegated my hosta to my back window box. You can see them here, and you can see the little tips of some of them coming up. And then I also have fern planted in here that is sending out those very characteristic, distinctive little whirligig fresh starts. And I planted some Alabama, I believe it's Alabama Sunrise heucherella. This is a southern living plant, and I have planted it in here. There's also a combination of some little things that have gone to seed, but this is an example of something that right now is just starting, and in a week or less, or 2 weeks, depending on the weather, it is going to absolutely explode. And right now you see a lot of bare earth, but this is going to just be absolutely profuse. There'll be spillers coming down the edge. There's more, you can't see it right now, but there are more fern in the back. There's even some little hellebores that went to seed. Here is another hosta. So this in its entirety will be completely filled out. And I see that even the columbine found a place in here, and they like that semi-shaded area. So that's what's coming along in here, but it is completely planted as part of my zhuzhing. It is completely planted, and it should be good to go. I got all of the stuff out of the greenhouse, all of the plants out of the greenhouse, and for the most part, there'll be a few exceptions. What you see is about as many container plantings as we're going to get. Stuart wants me, what do you want me to show? Oh, these. Look at these, you guys. Now, granted, this one is spent, and that one is about spent. How long have these been blooming now, Stuart? A long time. And look at how fresh the blooms still are. And not only that, look. Here's another bud. Here's another bud. There's another bud. So these are going to be blooming for a good long time. These were a color blends, Amaryllis, I believe, that I had at Christmas before last, and I've positioned them here. Red isn't normally a color I have in my garden or that I really like in my spring garden, but these are just so absolutely exquisite. They just have to be here. And because the most sentimental plant for me our geraniums, our pelargoniums, I've got them here because they've got this great color repeat that I like so well. And that leads me to my question of the day. My sisters and I have really been kind of nostalgic this weekend because it's Easter weekend, and we are thinking about Easter and my parents that are now gone, and planting geraniums because it's something that my second mom always did, and the scent of them, the look of them, everything about them is just so nostalgic and the most sentimental of plants to me. So that's my question of the day for you guys. What is the most sentimental plant in your garden, and why is it sentimental to you? Make sure to put your zone. Okay, over here, Stuart, moving on. This lemon cypress just does not want, I need a more formidable and supportive stake in there. So I will get to that. All of this columbine is just very, very happy here. And there's, I see also that some of the purple columbine has made its way into what I think of as the minor flower bed. Because this is where I plant all of the extra bulbs. So you see the spent foliage from the hyacinths and from some daffodils. That will stay in place. I will allow it to brown and mature and feed the bulbs underneath. And then back here, I've got all sorts of bulbs that I forced in pots or that I grew in pots. All of these are waiting to be installed in that area right there. So the bulbs that I use indoors later come outdoors. I do not throw them away. I plant them in my minor bulb garden. I'm getting started on my theater of boxwood. Here is another example where I took a lot of starts. These were started by my friend Monica. They were in individual little clay pots, and I just lined them all up into this terracotta window box, and ultimately what I hope is that these will grow into a small hedge that I will keep very, very pristinely pruned in a rectangular form. So that's kind of what I did over here. I lost a couple of them to this winter because it was just so dry, and that might be okay because I'm simplifying this area a little bit. Still have these, by the way, I mentioned this in one of my previous walkabouts. These are here because these are sprinkler heads that need to be addressed and need to be modified. And my sprinkler guy, this is a very busy time of year and he still hasn't been able to come out, but that will happen pretty soon this week, I think. Here are some geraniums that I'm going to combine. These came out of the greenhouse, so they're a little wah-wah, but they are going to they're going to be happy now that they've been brought out into the sun. So I want to show you So I guess it was very unsatisfactory for some of you that I showed you some of my geraniums, but I didn't show you how hard I pruned them when they were just a little bit overgrown and profuse. So Stuart, look here, I'll show some examples. Some of this, like right here, these are pretty obvious. These are just canes that aren't really doing anything, but you can see that when I cut into it, it's green, so they're still living. But then I've got things like this. This one is bent and broken. So how hard can I cut that back? Well, I want these to grow as bushily as possible. So I'm going to cut it back right there. And at the point of the leaf node, right there, where that line is, where the leaf connected to the plant, to the stem, that is where it will send out new growth. Likewise here, this is kind of straggly. I could just cut off those offensive leaves, or I could cut the whole thing off at the base. In this case, I'm going to cut it off at the base because in short order it will fill out, and this entire composition will be, which was, by the way, so magnificently captured by Stuart last year, and this is one of my favorite pictures in the book. Oh, yeah. Do you remember which one it was, Stuart?
I do.
It's these very, very distinctive blooms. Here's another tip, you guys. As these are blooming and these are still fresh, sometimes what I'll do is just clip off those, the ones that are spent. I can pinch them off. And then it just looks like there's just a few little petals left on that one. I could do it to this one too. So that's how you can get a little bit more. You can upgrade. These really should be done with not these kind of pruners, but with probably just some scissors. Then the other thing that I do to freshen up my geraniums is any leaves like this that are kind of hanging down, I'll go all the way back to the stem and snip them off. And this has just been outside for a little while, so in fairly short order, it's going to really fill out. I will probably also come back in here and put a layer of compost on it and give it a feed because it has just been kind of wallowing in the greenhouse. And I'll do the same with those after I combine them into a larger pot. Okay, Stuart over here. Again, I know I'm being a little bit redundant, but I do want to give you guys updates. So look here, look at how this is putting out new growth all the way to the tips. Prior to that, it looked just like this. And if I had cut it all the way back, I would have cut off all of the growth blooming on that stem. I think this one isn't going, it's showing no signs of life. So I'm going to cut it right there. See how it's brown where I cut it? That tells me that this stem is dead. Whereas if I cut into this stem, it would show me signs of green. And I'll wait on these a little bit longer before I cut back any of these dead stems that are still projecting out. But I don't know, I kind of like the way they look. They kind of, I don't know, they have kind of a maze-like quality. And this time of year, I love the tension between the new emerging growth, fresh growth, and the old wood. I just love that. It makes me happy. For example, little tiny buds that are coming out on old wood. That's one of my favorite things of springtime. And this is the Annabelle that you guys were with me. We need to put a link to this video when I cut it back pretty hard. And all of this blooms on new wood. The leucojum are about finished, but they were very, very sweet. And all of that foliage I will allow to die back in place, unlike the tulips. Here are some more geraniums. This is a scented geranium, and this is a regular pelargonium. And this one, I loved the branching. So I am letting it crawl up this tutor. And then in these kind of instances, how I will prune these, if I want them to bush out, is I will prune them at the very tip. So for example, on this one, if I want the cane to remain, but I want to prune it so that it encourages bushiness, you can see I actually already did it there, but I'll do it again here. just above a leaf, and that will encourage more growth down at the bottom. And these are going to be fun because these are going to be kind of contained inside these cages. I'm getting ready to prune this one. So this one is gotten really, really lanky. And these I might cut back very hard. So this, oh my gosh, that smells good, Stuart. So these, like this one, I might cut all the way back to there. This one, I might cut all the way back to here. And then I can take these cuttings and I can root them, but this whole mound of scented geraniums then will really bush out, get a lot thicker. I'll give it a good feed and it will be very, very happy. And here's some more geraniums over in here. These I'll just keep deadheading. So right now it's very important to keep things like this deadheaded and then pinch off any of the leaves that have been browned from the wind. So that's why I always have my snips. Okay, if you'll move along here, you can see how much the white wedding hydrangeas are starting to leaf out here. This is a crepe myrtle here, an early bird crepe myrtle, and it is starting to leaf out. It might be transplanted this fall. Here is one thing I'm very concerned about. You guys may remember that I relocated my button bush last year back in here, and even though I kept it very watered, it's not looking very happy because the winter was just so dry, and I don't know if it's going to make it or not, but I'm going to hold on in hopes it sputters out. Maybe even at the base, it sputters out with some green growth, but I'm just going to kind of let it be for a little while. Okay, in the front, I told you guys that I told y'all that I took out some different shrubs because I just felt it was getting too congested, and the same thing is true back here. So I've identified some that I want to take out, and I will, some of these I just don't even really have room to transplant them. So I'll probably gift them to Stuart's mom, or to someone else to plant in their landscape. But as I'm standing here, Stuart, can you do just a kind of just a little sweep of how pretty that looks over there? Even though I'm not completely finished with all I have yet to do. Now some of these things that are mulched in gravel, I just kind of remove the gravel, and probably, I don't know if I'll be able to finish what I've started here because I really need my garden boots to be able to do this. But yes, I do. But I'm going to remove this globe arborvitae. If I do it now, I'm not going to be able to get a big enough root ball. That's a tip when you're transplanting a shrub or anything. Try to get as large a root ball as possible. Sometimes it's difficult because they're in really congested space. But I'm going to move this, and I've got a new planting plan for this little area back here. And another shrub that I'm going to remove is this red pygmy barberry that's right here, because it's just crowding it out. There's not enough negative space in here, so I'm going to remove that. And it will get transplanted someplace else, as will probably this guy right here. But before I do so, you know what I'm going to do, Stuart? I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at my fall pictures because I love the way the barberry looks in the late fall. And if from a color standpoint, this was making a real contribution to the other barberries, to the orange rocket and the golden barberry and these baby gems, then I may leave it here. But if it doesn't, then I'm going to remove it so that the path isn't quite so congested, and I can reveal the stepping stones a little bit more. Look at the bluebells back here, Stuart. This is where the bluebells are really thriving, back in here. This whole area gets some water, but not a lot of water. And it's like the perfect blue in companionship with the blue spires of the ajuga back in here. And here are a couple of tulips. that I did allow to mature. I actually transplanted them from the front, but these are only 2 that remain out of probably 50 I planted back here that I relocated from the front to the back, let the foliage die back. And by the way, that's a fun little thing. This is another little digression, but we were talking about foliage versus foliage and how it might be regional, and someone chimed in from the UK and said over there it's foliage, as in carriage and marriage, so it's a regional thing. But I find that kind of stuff fascinating. But these are the only 2 out of maybe 50 that I planted back here that came back, so that tells you that they aren't real reliable. Tulips aren't real reliable coming back. And then Stuart is just absolutely captivated with the snowball viburnum, aren't you, Stuart?
It's a white tree.
It is. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this year, my favorite stage is actually when a portion of them are the lime green, like that one back there, yeah, Stuart.
Like how they were last time.
Like last time we shot them. And now they pretty much converted to white. And this year, I mentioned it before, I think we have more blooms this year, Stuart, but I think the blooms are smaller. What do you?
They do seem a little smaller.
Yeah, I think they seem, that's probably because it was such a dry winter. Okay, the last thing I'm going to give you an update on is back here in the potager. There's lots of work to do in the potager, but I know some of you thought I was crazy when I cut this back really hard, and it still doesn't look great. I am very aware of that, but you can see that it's forcing out new growth. Now, the new growth that's coming out now is on growth that was still in pretty good shape before. What you probably will not be able to see, but that thrills me no end, is if you get up really close, if you had a magnifying glass, there are new buds forming all along these dead canes. I don't know that you can see it, Stuart.
I'm gonna hold it there and let them decide.
Okay, here's an example maybe over here. Okay, our mic just died, so I need to wrap up this tour. But I did want to tell you that hope springs eternal, and that hopefully the next time you see this, it will look 100% better, 100% greener, and I don't regret at all cutting it back hard. My friend Roger, that you guys have seen before in some of my videos, he was over here the other day and he said, oh, not to worry. He said in 2 weeks this will look just fine. He has cut boxwood back considerably harder than this, and he said, so it will be fine, you just have to be patient. And he knows well, he knows me well. He said, I know that's not your strong suit, but I sure don't want to have to plant it all over again. So there's a lot more to show back here, including I'm doing my little herb theater back in here. It's still a work in progress, but that's for a whole nother video. But I did want to give you an update because stuff is changing so fast. I feel like I can't keep up. I also hope that you could hear me on this last little bit of video. So you guys go out, get in the garden, hopefully take my book out there for reference. It will give you some ideas, and Stuart and I will be back same time, same place. Take care. Well, here is my outfit of the day, starting with some earrings that hold a lot of meaning to me. They almost look like a piece of candy, or that's what I thought of when I was 5 years old, and my second mother wore them when she was dating my dad. And they are just acrylic, but they belonged to my second mom, and they really enamored me when I was a kid, because they just, what do they look like? What's that Dr. Seuss book about polka dots on the animals at the zoo?
Reminds me of that game where everybody has to bend over and touch the dots and it spins around. What's that one called?
Twister?
It might be called Twister.
But at any rate, yeah, my brothers and sisters will get a kick out of it if they watch this video, because these will be very iconic earrings to them too. My top came, I bought it online. I'll make sure to put a link. It is just kind of what I am into this year, just really breezy. I'm buying everything a little bit large because it just is a little bit cooler when you're working out in the garden. My breeches are Matchstick J. Crew, and I can't remember if I bought these I've had them for so long, I can't remember if they were thrifted or if I bought them new. And then these are some of those just foot form sandals that I buy online that I like so much. And I have all sorts of different varieties of them. These are kind of a fun, funky flower look, kind of young and hip and perfect for this Easter weekend. So there you go, there's my outfit of the day.